I could tell you stories about how much of our global financial infrastructure runs on Microsoft Excel. It would really scare you. We brought Ernst & Young to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price was like $500 at the time. You can't do what you want to do with crypto if you're in a big four consulting firm. It doesn't work. The main difference between a bot and an agent, a bot is something that kind of works on a long if-then statement, whereas an agent will always reference state. If you're a major chain and you're not monitoring your top 20 projects,
right,
it's almost negligent.
You've reached Toby and Brent. We'll get back to you.
Daniel, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
We've known you for quite some time, and so as Drake says, better late than never, but never late is better. And yeah, man, we love to learn. Obviously, what you guys been doing at Synternet's been very fascinating. I mean, in this industry, just not too long ago, we're talking about fly-by-night companies. You guys are like the anti-fly-by-night companies that have been around. You guys have, made yourself quite a name in this space. And so, yeah, man, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Super cool to be here.
Yeah. And
your first time in Denver, actually?
No, I was here last year.
So it's your second time in Denver?
Second time in Denver. Yeah, I love the city, actually. It's really easy to get around. I was very happy that it wasn't minus 20 degrees, which is what I heard. So I brought all my warm clothes. And
Well, but where you're from, though, you're like used to the cold now. I mean,
it doesn't mean you like it, right? No, but it's, I live in Switzerland, which is nice, right? But at least then, here as well, you have mountains, but I had no time to go skiing yet. So
where are you from originally?
I was born in Switzerland, but I grew up in Boston.
Oh, that's the accent.
Yeah, that's the accent. Yeah, I've worked very hard with coaches and linguists to get rid of the Boston accent, right? And
that's insane. I did not realize you grew up in Boston.
Yeah, yep.
Boston accent is like intense.
So when you moved to Switzerland?
Well, so I left the States after university. I went to Africa for 2 years, and then I joined Ernst & Young as a junior consultant and spent 20 years just traveling around the world. So, yeah. So 7 years Vienna, Stockholm, Singapore, Philippines.
You were in the Philippines. You were in Singapore also, right?
Yep.
When was that?
Shortly after Y2K. So a long time ago. It's like...
different times then.
Different times, yeah. Yeah, that's what my background is, right? I was in global financial services and doing investment banking and that kind of stuff. So before I went into crypto, then I got, saw the beautiful clarity of the Bitcoin blockchain and I was transfixed. I could tell you stories about how much of our global financial infrastructure runs on Microsoft Excel. It would really, really scare you. And I was, then I was just transfixed. This clear, simple Bitcoin blockchain, never makes mistakes, completely trustless. And then so I became that guy, right? I became the guy that was running around, annoying everybody saying, hey, Bitcoin. But we brought Ernst & Young to Bitcoin. We were the first big four to accept Bitcoin payments. The Bitcoin price was like $500 at the time. We put an ATM in the lobby. We built a wallet for 132,000 employees. So it was quite revolutionary at the time. But then I realized you can't kind of do what you want to do with crypto if you're in a big four consulting firm. It doesn't work.
So you kind of went into EY as a junior and left.
I left as a partner. I was a partner at EY. I was offered then the chance to be a co-founder of our telco company, Swisscom. So I founded Swisscom Blockchain. Which was we basically built hardware secure modules for some of the asset managers in Switzerland to be able to offer Bitcoin and Ethereum to their customers way back before the first ICO boom. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was early days.
So how did this transition come along? I mean, now, you're from a partner at EY to building a telco blockchain, and now you're sitting in Denver.
Yeah, people must have thought you were like crazy when you left. They're like, people will probably work their entire lives to make part, and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go into crypto.
My wife certainly thought I was crazy, right? She's like, dude, you gotta it's like an end of career job. You like you retire and then we go move somewhere warm with sand and beaches, right? And like you don't go into this degen world, right? So no, I mean, I think that once you go into crypto, and I don't know anybody who's done it and come back, right? Nobody's gone to crypto and turned around and been like, hey, I'm going to go back to the post office or wherever I was working, right? But I got to admit, sometimes I see old colleagues, right? And the bank, I have a friend of mine, I can't say his name and I can't say the bank, but he was trying to push change inside the bank so hard, right? That eventually he just gave up. And then he didn't show up for work for a year, right? And then he got a raise. And then he was like, what's going on? And he was like, well, you stopped complaining about all the things. So we figured you must have solved them. We thought you should have a raise, right? And he was
I love that.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I'm getting older. I want to do something in the world. I don't want to just earn money, And he's like, he's in this kind of turmoil, because he can't leave his day job, because they keep paying him better and he doesn't show up anymore. So, yeah. So, I'm very, very happy that I'm no longer in that world, right? The speed at which crypto moves, it's just, you do so much, right? There's a whole evolutions happen in cycles and you look at your sort of friends behind the desk in the corporate world and, slowly aging and dying. It's like, there's no going back. So.
Well, and especially the space you're in now with DeFi AI, I mean, it's a crazy time. Like, two of like the kind of hottest narratives, but also just how fast crypto is growing, how fast AI is going. And I think, especially for a lot of investors, like they see the connection of the identity and verification piece of the blockchain, the financial side of crypto, and then the AI component. I mean, it's...
Yeah. It's a little bit buzzword bingo, right? But I think that let's admit it, it's just too cumbersome to deal with crypto. It's like the wallets and the codes and the passphrases and the things and getting it out and the thing. I had a friend of mine who was like, he had like $1,000 of some altcoin on a ledger, but the display broke, so he couldn't see, where the numbers were when he was trying to authorize. Now I was trying to help him get out of it. It's just so complicated for the normal person. And I think this is the real advantage of AI in DeFi, is that it can offer chain abstraction. It can help make it easier to be multi-chain, to actually have utility, and to capture the value of some of the things you can do with crypto, without the burden, right? So if we can mirror that with somehow somebody solving the identity nut, then we're actually in a very, very, very good space, because then you could have self-sovereign ID with chain abstraction, a multi-chain universe, and you can actually start to do some really cool stuff.
Before we go deeper in like these whole different things that you guys are doing right now, I would love to understand a bit more like the beginning of Synternet, right? I mean, your background now doing AI, I mean, this is all very tech heavy business, right? And I've seen the product and stuff like that. So it's pretty sick. And we'd just love to understand, like, did you do this? Did you hire a team? Like, what was the beginning? Why Synternet?
So the genesis of Synternet was really in building a faster routing protocol for the internet. And we've got patents to prove it. We did some work for Entain, which is one of the largest, they run Ladbrokes in the UK and other things. So we saved them something like 6 years of broadcasting time during the World Cup, one World Cup, just because of finding faster internet routing. And so we then said, that this has massive potential for being able to disseminate information around the globe quickly in a trustless manner. And that was the genesis. But the data space alone is very, very crowded. Right? You have Alchemy, Morales, QuickNote, Chainlink, you name it. They're all in there, and they give you, basically $1 million worth of data free just to use their protocol and say that they used it. So, we quickly figured out that raw data is probably not where, the Lambos are hiding. But to interpret the data and to turn it into signals, and signals that mean something, like Terra Luna. What's it worth? 0 or 1? It's not a lot of data, right? 0, it's safe. 1, it's not. Get out. What would that message be worth to you? Well, that would be worth a lot, right? And it would be actually relatively easy to spot such a signal if you were just monitoring it, because you could see that, okay, it's supposed to be a stable coin, it's supposed to have some sort of balance. And as soon as it starts to wobble, these things don't happen instantly, right? Even if you get out within the first hour, you're pretty good, right?
Yeah.
In that case, it was like 24 hours, right? Like, and then, it was still kind of bouncing around. You could have still saved your cash.
Wow.
And how are you guys doing that, right? Because I mean, for everyone, including me, this sounds very complicated, right?
Yeah. So, we have, it's quite simple, right? Like, actually, because we have, everybody knows a node, and the blockchains are run on nodes. We have a whole host of infrastructure providers that are streaming data into Synternet. And then we have the computational power to turn and filter and simplify that data into very simple signals. And so those signals are tailored to work with agentic frameworks like ELIZA and others in order to turn messages into something that an agent can continually check. Right. So the main difference between a bot and an agent, a bot is something that kind of works on a long if-then statement. Right. I have a problem with orders. Okay, orders. You want to return your order. Your order was incomplete. You did not get your order. Like the bot will have a series of sequence of stuff that it wants to turn down. Whereas an agent will always reference state again. Right. So it will take an action and then we'll look and to see if the action has done anything to change state. And this makes them infinitely more powerful, right? Because the agent can then always assume new things. And it's got a bunch of functions that he can call out to get to that new space. So, but these state references, right, are incredibly important because without them, the agents start to hallucinate. And that's the real danger. And so when large language models aren't timely enough, right? They're out of their time horizon. They're not actual enough, or when they're just not specific enough. This is where we come in and we offer that connection for the agents to find references that are more timely, more accurate, real-time data that serves AI, but also specific language models. So that are also, very specific to particularly cross-chain things, right? So we see a lot of BTC-Fi being a big push. We actually think that BTC-Fi, the next altcoin washout, and is going to be BTC-Fi effectively, right? It's going to be not going to go through the DEXs or the SEXs where people sell the Bitcoins and then go buy altcoins. It's actually going to be wrapped Bitcoin assets promoting other on Ethereum, Solana, and the different, just directly through. Because people are going to want to get yield on their Bitcoin.
Of course.
And that's what's going to push that. So that's what it's also going to be the place where people are going to lose their shirts, right? This is where, things are going to become unwrapped because, how does the average user know, if the collateralization of the wrapped Bitcoin is actually there? They don't, right?
They don't, right?
They can't monitor 27 different smart contracts and 3 different unbonding, just to actually see if the proof of reserves is there. But we can, right? And we can do it in a decentralized way. We can feed that to agents and the agents can keep you safe.
That's exciting. It's a lot to process, right? It's a lot to train down. But I think from a customer perspective, right? If you break that down into, I want to be safe, right? I have my crypto, and most of the people that hold crypto, they put it on a spreadsheet, right? That's what they're doing. So they say I have X amount here, right, in this different wallets on these chains, blah blah blah. So then I can go to Synternet, and how does it work?
Yeah, well, so I think that you'll probably discover Synternet through agents. And I think that Synternet is probably the place where agents go and, get, right now, many agents are just kind of glorified meme coins. They have a personality and you can chat with them, right? You wouldn't quite trust the agent to be connected to your MetaMask wallet. Not yet, right? It's the early days of the internet. You wouldn't trust your credit card on a web page yet. So, but in this case, soon the agents will reference state so often that they'll know, and you will trust them, with a couple $100 in your MetaMask wallet because they'll trade for you. And that's I have a friend at Cambridge and University, and he has, he says all AI is the best recommendation engine. Right? It's all it ever does. It will only be a really good recommendation engine. The question is how how implicitly do you trust the recommendation it gives you? So if you have, if your agent is out there and it says, hey, I've looked through the 300,000, coins that came out this month. I found this handful. These are the ones you should be interested in, right? You first filter it and then invest manually, or by the time, in the future we see, you'd probably just have them trade for you, right? And have the agent do what he does best, right? And it'll be depending on how good they are at understanding you and how effective they are at gaining that trust.
Mm-hmm. Is that scary in a sense that everything will be the same, right? Because if everybody's using the same AI agent, they'll all recommend them the same. I mean, probably it's going to be an individual input and based on risk parameters and whatever they want to do. But effectively, it sounds like a little bit, it's going to be like very standardized, right? Like how do you see that future with the...
I almost see it as the opposite. I think it's going to be hyper individualized. One of the things I just came out of Hong Kong, Consensus Hong Kong, and there was this one conference where there was more AI people than crypto people, although it was Consensus Hong Kong. So and they were all from the med tech space. Now imagine if you had an AI agent that you could trust to keep your medical history completely secret, but that knew you, right? Knew your nut allergies, knew your whatever you have, and can work for you, right? I mean, most people trust Google probably more than their house doctor anyway. I think it's going to be in a space where you're going to be hyper specialized, and they're going to know you like the Pepe meme coins, and it's going to know what you're interested in, the fundamentals, and that you're into DeFi and whatever. And it'll actually be specialized. It'll be indexed towards you, and that index will be private.
That's a very interesting point. And just from, like whoever hears this, right? It's like, how are they getting involved with Synternet, right? I mean, what kind of customers are you guys looking for? What's the current customer base like?
So we work with anybody who's interested in building agentic frameworks or working on it, like Eliza, Game, you name it, REG, Alora.
Can you define agentic frameworks also?
Yeah, so these are the frameworks that you see on virtuals, that are behind, that these are the frameworks that then enable the agents to call stuff and the language models that are working with them. So anybody working on any AI models that need to reference state, we've got a development team that's standing by to make it easier for you to use Synternet. So just contact us in any way, shape, or form. Smoke signals, like a telephone, fax machine even. It's funny, I got a business card the other day. It was the first time in a long time that I got a paper business card, and there was still a fax number on it, I always thought that imagine like you have the fax number of like so many people, you actually send them a fax. Have you ever tried sending anybody a fax now? It'd be like the best viral marketing you could do. You send like 100,000 faxes out, and just see where they go, see who responds. I don't even know anybody if they still make a fax machine, but yeah, but it's like, so any way you want to contact us. We will help you. We're a decentralized platform for inference. We're building the largest inference pool in the world. And it's very important, that decentralized part, because what you don't want, you have to continually train your AI models. Mm-hmm. You can't like train them on Dune and then set them free in the wild world of real-time data. That doesn't work. You need to continually train them. Otherwise they get, they get slow and they start hallucinating. So we work in a decentralized fashion. That's so that nobody can spoof your AI. And this is the big topic, right? Like there's a lot of AI agent days and stuff like that. Everybody's talking about the bias that people can inject into AI models, right? That they can become racist, or they can start, like certain products over other products. And again, if you're talking about your healthcare or you're talking about your crypto, you don't want it to be spoofed. You don't want it to be influenced by anybody else. And this is why those references to state have to be, the world context that isn't spoofed. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, it's fascinating because just like in the non-crypto world, just think about Google, right? And like Twitter, right? And before Elon even bought Twitter, and just like the influence like these like social media platforms like have, it's like they're all spoofed. Media is spoofed. Yeah. Right. But we're just saying this in the AI agent realm, but it's like, that's why, like, to your point, I agree about everything be more personalized, because I think nowadays, like, no one really believes like anything is objective. Google's not objective. X is not, no platform is objective. They're all curating you based on like what they kind of want, right? And I think like it's AI agents are the next like 10 years. I mean, it's fascinating. And obviously for what you're doing in crypto is like incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Google's almost an archaic tool right now, right? Because like, text typing something into a window and then getting
Google ads.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
insane.
You get the first 6 responses are ads. Then you have 3 or 4 other ones, and then only check the first page, right? You don't go onto the 13 or 14 or 20 other pages on the bottom. Nobody ever does that, right?
Yeah.
So it really is not just spoofed. It's funneled advertisement to your brain, right? And there's some other ones that are trying to get around that a little bit. But imagine if you had an agent that was, you could demonstrate was loyal to you based on, elliptic curve cryptology and things that are not easy to spoof, with ZK layers coming in to protect your personal data, and then working on things that, you're interested in and loyal to you, then add an anime on top and give her a nice voice. And then, you have your next, Lucy the nurse, that can, it's going to be very quick to people that adopt these things, right? I think the barrier to adopting an agent is going to be much, much faster than, starting to get into Bitcoin in 2016 or something like that.
Right. And then what's like the next 6 to 12 months for you guys? What's like important? What's on Synternet's roadmap of?
Well, we went live in July last year, 2024. We're fully validated Cosmos chain. So what we are, now working on is building that agentic, building the biggest inference pool in the world. So for us, it's important to have the type of data inputs that are relevant. So we work with companies that are giving us the small language models when the large language models tap out. Mm-hmm. But we also are building a global developer community in different countries, country by country, slow and painful way, in Philippines and Vietnam, mainland China, and Indonesia, Thailand, and all the other places where developers are, and really kind of making it as easy as possible for them to use Synternet. That's what we want. We want people to come to us. We to train their agents, to let their agents check state. And in an ideal world, going back to who's our real customer, right? Yeah. We see that agent to agent communication is going to be creating new inferences. So in the world that we see that we'll have millions of agents check millions of states on a daily basis. And agents are already making better responses by talking to themselves and checking their answers and just to see if they're plausible or not. Mm-hmm. Agents talking to other agents to also kind of, get better responses because they might be more specified, is going to be even the next step in that space. So that's kind of the flywheel that we see is, so right now we're working with the people who work on agentic frameworks. Soon, hopefully, we're going to be, the place that agents go to check state. Do
you think AI agents will take away jobs or
same way? I mean, okay, so let's look at, Microsoft Excel, right? Like again, it's the backbone of most of our banking system, right? Mm-hmm. Does it take away jobs because you're no longer using a paper ledger? No, it's just that it is a way to do things much more productively.
Agreed.
Right? And if you look at so we are actually forcing everybody in our company to spend at least 1 hour on AI a day, just using the tools and doing stuff, right? Just because you have to know, if you don't do it now, if you're not using Excel and you're still writing down everything and manually adding it up, with a little, you're not working to your full capacity anymore, right?
Is it almost like in a couple of years, it'd be like using a fax machine now, and people would be like,
"Yeah, I think they're going to make a comeback."
But I was in Japan and working, and people had an Excel, put the numbers in, and used the calculator to sum them up and double checking if Excel is correct, and that's 3 years ago.
Yeah, I probably know the bank, right? That's what really scares me. I mean, I know some banks that still have a COBOL mainframe, right? Because the business case to replace your mainframe system is it's not doesn't exist. So the core banking of some of our biggest banks, is run on a system where like there's two engineers that really understand it. If one of them gets hit by a bus, they're in trouble, right? So
but I feel like there's this insane gap. No, I mean, like we're talking about AI agents that talk to each other, right? They're going to be personalized and, walk through all these frameworks and get trained with millions of data points. And then you have a guy at a bank that sums up things in a calculator in Excel, right? How do you think this is going to come together? Or like, what's going to happen?
Well, it's not going to come together. And I don't think like when I was at Swisscom blockchain, like Swisscom runs the infrastructure for half of the Swiss banks. The other half is run by the stock exchange, the SIX group. And so we walked into every boardroom 2015, 2016 talking about blockchain, and they kind of let us come in there and talk to them, and we were convinced we could then, start this new financial center in Switzerland and, like the real financial revolution and move to blockchain. Now, I'm not so sure. I don't think that, I think that it's funny because Art Basel actually had a really good take on it. They said, like, we know our industry is not going to transform into this new world. So they created a second industry, a company, and they said, your mission is to basically, take us out. Right, do everything that we can't do, and then and replace us. Right, disintermediate. The people who can no longer do that, and that's why I see the financial services. I think that inevitably they're not going to transform. They're going to die out, and new services are going to take their place. Right. It's like there's so many examples of industries, the people like the ice machines where they would take ice blocks and drive them to a truck and you would get the ice, put it into things, right? Nobody worried about like, how do we transform the jobs of the ice block industry and turn them into, the refrigerator industry. Right? When the refrigerators came out, that was it. The ice block industry was done. Right. And I think it's in the same way, banking and financial services have to fall, because there's so much inefficiency. And I know because I was a partner for 20 years working global financial services. I can tell you stories, but I probably can't tell you stories. I'll get sued or something, but it's a horrible, horrible wasteland. Run
that through ChatGPT. Can I actually say this? Yeah. No, it's true. And same with like legal services. I mean, I worked in law for a decade. I mean, the amount of inefficiency, the amount of templates lawyers use, they just plug in a couple of things and they charge you $20,000 for them. Like, that's going to go away. Like, you can just get a drafted contract of virtually anything now. And in like 5 years, it's like, why do I even need a lawyer for a case? Maybe just like overview of a few things. But yeah, that's why like I'm not a big believer in like a lot of jobs will be lost in like a sense. It's just the evolution of technology.
Nobody's going to cry.
Yeah.
For the lawyers.
No, absolutely not.
that are
or the bankers. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I know that, coming back to kind of Synternet for a second, I know that you guys are also in the fundraising stage right now. So maybe we can go over a little bit of that, the journey, some of the things you're planning to do with that capital.
Yeah, we're well advanced in the Series A, so it's an absolute great milestone to be in. We're a fully registered Gibraltar virtual asset service provider, so a registered VASP, we've got 17 patents sitting in the VASP. We've got a team that's been working on this quite a while, fully validated Cosmos chain, right? So the technology is ready to go. I think what we are working on now is making it as easy as possible, getting the distribution right, getting in front of the people that are building. And that's something we haven't been focusing on. We've been focusing on the tech until now. And so really what a large part of this is going into is to generate the adoption and to make sure that anybody who's building on agents or building agentic frameworks or building the applications that come after that knows about us, is able to work with us and making it as easy as possible. So to work with us. So that's the drive.
Yeah. And before we wrap, I guess, where can people learn more about Synternet? How can they get involved? Do you guys mainly is on X, Telegram? How do you guys kind of interact?
We're on X and we're on Telegram. We have our own agent. It's a showcase. So his name's Syntoshi after Synternet. And he is...
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, well, he's great. We love him, right? And he's it's on. We have two guys that have spent a lot of time to develop him, and unsurprisingly, his personality almost kind of mirrors theirs, right? So he's a little bit cynical, he's a little bit sarcastic, but he is one of the few agents that don't just use language models. He looks at on-chain activities. His focus is in the wrapped asset space, and he looks at cross-chain activities. And so we're about to do a larger push with him into Asia, and because we see that actually we think that Bitcoin dominance is going to be kind of reach another all-time high. It's going to go on for quite a long time, and I think that a lot of people are going to be looking for, where can I get yield on my Bitcoin? Finally, I'm a whole coiner now, or and especially in the retail space, and especially in Asia, the people are going to want to have yield on their investments. If you take two guys from Hong Kong, one guy's earning interest on his Bitcoin, the other guy isn't. They're going to compare notes in the bar every night, and the guy's going to be like, "I made 10%. What did you make?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just capital gains, man." It's over, right? They're all going to be doing that, and I can guarantee you that some of the bigger loss events are going to happen because these wrappers are going to come undone. And this is where Satoshi specifically keeps you safe. So you do need a balance of tokens to interact with Satoshi, but you don't need a balance of tokens to be notified of the alerts that he sends out and some of the other things that he says. So, which is really cool, right? So keeping people safe in crypto, stopping, I remember the cover of The Economist. When the FTX scandal happened, there was like a comet coming in and burning up in the atmosphere, and it just said the death of crypto. And it's like, yeah. And then there was one of those moments where my wife was like, "Why did you leave? Why? You had it good, man. What are you doing?
Stable company."
I was like, "It's not dead. She's sleeping. Let it lie." I had to go buy her a handbag or a watch or something and make it all up for her again. But no, I mean that when scandals happen, right? And you saw it with Bybit, right? You kind of now they're discussing, okay, so should we roll back the Ethereum chain? I'm like, hold on, wait, you could do that? Like, I thought only Solana can do stuff like that, right? I know Bitcoin can't, right? So, but to unwind the hack, right? But you shouldn't be able to. And in the future, hopefully you can't, right? Because shouldn't just be able to shut down a decentralized infrastructure, rewind a bit because somebody did something naughty, right? It's better to make sure that the naughty things don't happen. And if they do, people are warned so that they can get out and they can protect themselves so that we don't have systemic shocks. And that's also one of the messages. Like if you're a major chain and you're not monitoring your top 20 projects,
right?
It's almost negligent.
That's insane.
Yeah. Because, one of those goes down and your ecosystem is going to have an impact. It doesn't matter. Everybody's going to be worried. And the place that this happens is the bridges and the cross-chain things that go between, UTXO and proof of stake, right? They don't naturally or natively, work with each other. There needs to be a bridging element, and that's the weak spot. And this is where our agent Satoshi monitors and keeps things safe. So
that's what I love what you said. What's the price for a notification like this, right? Before some of the stuff unwraps, or talked about Luna, right? And I think that's where it becomes very, very critical, because everybody's like, oh, nothing. But then when it happens, that's when people wake up, right? And then you realize, okay, I would have paid a lot of money to receive the message.
Yeah, I know somebody who was building, and they had this wonderful commodities platform that they were building, and they checked and, hey, what's this with Terra Luna? I see there's some issues. Well, no, it's all fine. Put the phone down, woke up the next day, 30 million's gone, investors' money's gone, the project's dead in the water, right? It's like, okay. Yeah. So, this shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. And this is also, so what's the price of that? Just as a plug for Synternet, is that you can actually, as a publisher, let's say you find the new Bali bands by combining one or two streams or something and parsing it down, you can republish your stuff. You can set your price. So this is actually where, if your agent is developing inferences for other agents, if you're parsing data, we give you the infrastructure to parse that data. But if you actually come up with something that's interesting, you set your price. Everybody earns. The platform just makes a small fee, and you're happy, right? So it's also a place where people who are building on agentic frameworks can monetize their stuff. So.
Yeah. Right. I love it. And honestly, hearing you speak, there's a lot of knowledge in you.
Yeah.
So
You need to have your own
I love it.
podcast at some point.
Yeah.
I need like an hour of Daniel a week talking to and maybe they get Santoshi on, and he can
Maybe get Santoshi
give like a
on,
weekly Santoshi report. Yeah,
Yeah, we need to have
Maybe
a couple
like-
more episodes with you. We need to dive in some of these AI pieces a little bit.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd love
There's lots to
that.
talk
Like
about.
you should. I think the development right in the agent space is really cool. Right, there's an agent now
Fascinating.
out there that will fight your parking tickets for you. Getting back to the legal stuff, right?
Oh my God,
Yeah,
I have so many.
Exactly. Right. So wouldn't that great? I mean, you just basically send him, he fills out all the paperwork and fights it, right up to the courtroom. Right. I mean, I'm parking everywhere. I'm never going to pay another parking.
Yeah. Dude. It's a really fascinating time. Well, Daniel, thank you for coming on. You mentioned your ex. Telegram people can like find you guys, interact with Santoshi. To me, it's a no brainer in this space. So
Yeah. Thanks
Appreciate
for
the
having me
time,
on.
man.
It's really great.
I'll
To
be
see.
excited to be a small part of it.
absolutely, and we'll get back to you.
Coming on.
Cheers.